Okay, with no further ado, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Pablo Ruiz, President of the Guayaquil Port Authority, who will be officially introducing this panel. Okay, Pablo, you have the floor.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. I am Pablo Rizzo. I preside the board of the Port Authority of Guayaquil, which is a very important port in Guayaquil as it moves 90% of the cargo coming to the country. And it is my pleasure to moderate this panel, Management, Innovation, and Sustainability in the Port and Shipbuilding Industries, International Experiences. We have three wonderful speakers. I hope I can pronounce his name right. Francesc Sánchez, who's the General Director of the Port Authority at Valencia, Spain. My grandmother's from there. He's an engineer in roadways, canals, and ports. He covers everything. He was also director of the Port Authority of Tarragona, Spain, and he is an expert on chemicals, and he also likes to teach. He's continuously involved in training and education of people who want to improve in port matters. Secondly, I would like to introduce Ms. Thecla Bodewes. She has a very interesting CV. In the Netherlands, they've been building vessels for 200 years. She's the seventh generation of a successful business with several shipyards. And what's interesting about these shipyards is that they focus on the ecology. So I'm very interested to learn about this. And our third guest is Mr. Omar Garcia. We have him virtually, I think, via streaming. Well, we'll see him shortly. Omar, he is the Chief External Affairs Officer of the Port Corpus Christi in the United States. He has vast public and private experience. He's an expert in oil and gas, and he has also been able to contribute with different governments in terms of public matters. So without further ado, let me remind you, you have 20 minutes for your presentations. So we will begin with Mr. Sánchez.
Muy bien.
Good afternoon. The truth is, I have to acknowledge from the bottom of my heart that it is a great pleasure and honor to be here with all of you. Firstly, because to see each other again face to face after everything we've experienced. The truth is, some of those who are sensitive as me get really emotional, but to even do it in such a wonderful place like the city of Cartagena here in Colombia, and in this such friendly environment with so many friends from AAPA Latino, the truth is, I insist, it's a great pleasure, it's a luxury and a privilege to be here this afternoon with all of you. Well, I'm going to very briefly in these 20 minutes I have to share with you a little bit of experiences, opinions, points of view about what the Port of Valencia has been. And I've divided it into three parts. First, I have some comments about how the Port of Valencia has evolved, how we have reached the point we have reached at until today, and what have been some of the key points that have made us reach this point. Again, next, I will share with you a short presentation about the port today, but sharing some comments about the role of the port, the role of a port authority within this context, and commenting also on the challenges as discussed by Leo from APMP. And please also allow me to briefly give you some brush strokes about the challenges that all ports have and how we are addressing these from the point of view of the Port Authority of Valencia. Let's begin then with the evolution of Valencia Port. Well, we're at 2021. We'll see figures from 2020. But let's go back, and please allow me today And one of the veterans here today, well, 50 years is nothing, as the song says. Well, let's go back 50 years to 1970. Because if we look at the figures of last year, the Port of Valencia ranks second in terms of total cargo, the first port of Spain in general cargo, the first in containers, first in imports and exports, first in ro-ro, first in vehicles. Well, we hold a position of leadership in Spain. But if we go back 50 years, did we think we'd have this same position? The Port of Valencia? Would we be among the first 5? Would we be among the first 10? Well, listen, we talk about total cargo. The Port of Valencia in 1970 held the position number 13 in the Spanish ranking. The first one was Cartagena, not Cartagena, Colombia, but Cartagena, Spain. And look at this port was 4 times the Port of Valencia. If we look at general cargo, at that time there wasn't statistics on containers, but general cargo, we ranked 6th. But look at how Bilbao and Barcelona, which were the first ports in Spain, were 3 times the Port of Valencia. So this has not always been like this. So what happened to take us from being a port, like a second-rate port in Spain, to today, from 13th and 6th to being leaders in Spain now? Well, if we had to summarize with one word, I would say the word would be innovation. What has happened is that the Port of Valencia has been an innovative port throughout all these years. And talking about innovation, what do we mean by this? Because on many occasions when we talk about innovation, we think about sending rockets to the moon, on using the latest technologies. We've heard about blockchain and using the latest technology. And no, in my opinion, innovation is a combination of 3 things. On the one hand, curiosity. The curiosity of kids when they're constantly asking questions. Why? The why of things. Imagination. To think about how to do things differently or how to do things we were not doing. And one thing that's very important, the daring to do these things. Because one lives very comfortably in one's comfort zone, and it's very easy to say, let others invent, let others experiment. But obviously, there's risks of being the first one, but it also has its rewards. Well, then let me give you some examples briefly at the Port of Valencia. In 1970, the Spanish port system, there were no port authorities that were empowered to manage. We all depended, or we all reported to the Ministry of Public Works then, today the Ministry of Transportation. And well, there was a couple of paradigms that I'm going to underscore here. The first one was that the cranes, the only one that could invest in cranes was the public sector. It was the ministry who authorized which cranes were to be purchased and at which ports these cranes would be assigned to. This decision was made by the Ministry of Public Works. It was the one then who decided which ports were going to do what. At that time, we saw the appearance of containers, and the planning done in Spain is that in Spain there would only be 3 container ports, one in the north, one in the south, and one in the east. The Port of Valencia was not contemplated in this list. Well, but some responsible parties from the public and private sectors asked themselves, well, why? They had the imagination and they dared. They were bold enough to dare do it. And we saw the appearance of the first private crane installed in a Spanish port. It was precisely in the Port of Valencia in 1972. It was a lever crane, which in today all Spanish ports, the cranes are private. They're owned by private companies. But at that time, these visionaries dared to invest in a private crane for the sector? Well, there's many more paradigms that we could go over in which the Valencia Port Authority started asking itself, why? Why are we the administration? Why do we have to focus on infrastructures? Why can't we invest outside the port facilities? And I would say that we were pioneers and we were bold. And here is a long list that I'm not going to dwell on about matters in which we invested, where we transformed, where we innovated, and where we dared to change things. Well, somehow then, this is daring by us, this boldness, led us to the port we have today. Well, today, as Port Authority, we manage 3 ports. We're on the eastern coast of Spain, on the Mediterranean. We manage the Port of Valencia, the Port of Sagunto, and the Port of Ganda. Here is a comparison of the 3 ports. Gandia is a very small port in the south with general cargo and passengers with the Balearic Islands. The Sagunto is a medium-sized port, which is 20 kilometers north of Valencia, and the most important port, which is the Port of Valencia. In terms of facilities, where the Port of Valencia, we have liquid and solid bulks, but we're not an important bulk port. We're an important port in terms of ro-ro, in terms of maritime transportation for short distances, in terms of passengers, regular line as well as cruises, and especially containers. In containers, we have 3 large terminals, one that operates COSCOs and imports, others that imports until, and another that does APMP by Maersk. So we say that the 3 main shipping lines of the world have direct investments in the Port of Valencia. And in addition, we are presently with the new North Terminal, which is a project that's also captivating. It's a completely automated terminal, and a terminal that's entirely sustainable with all electrical machinery. All the electricity or the energy or the power is consumed by the terminal, is internally produced. It is a wonderful project. It has a capacity of 5 million TEUs. The Port of Valencia presently moves around 5.5 million TEUs. The present capacity of the 3 terminals is around 7.5 million, 8 million. So that is, we're almost close to saturation. And therefore, this project is very important. We're talking about 2 kilometers of berthing positions, 140 hectares of surface, 700 meters width, 19.5 meters depth, and investments, PP investment of more than 1 billion euros. The facilities at Sagunto are specialized in break bulk and general break bulk, also LNG, liquefied natural gas. What happens is that the Sagunto port, its importance is that with the recent North Terminal, the port will extinguish its capacity, whereas the Sagunto port, which is located 20 kilometers from Valencia, does have a possibility for expansion towards the south. Therefore, our strategy is to conciliate Valencia Sagunto as a single port and to integrate both port facilities, hence the importance of the Sagunto port. In terms of figures and traffic, well, the Port of Valencia presently ranks 27 in the world in terms of container movements. It ranks 5th in Europe and 1st in Spain. Close to 5.5 million containers, as I already mentioned. We are a mixed port. Close to 60% of our traffic is transshipment and 40% is import-export traffic. And also, it is a very balanced port because foreign trade, approximately 50% is imports and 50% is exports, as we see here. Now, let me share this with you. Are these figures really worth something? Do they tell us something? 5 million boxes. Well, if we compare ourselves with a Chinese port, we're a very tiny port. Does this mean that we're not important? So here's my first comment. Ports, in my opinion, we're not an end in ourselves. We're an instrument at the service of the economy, at the service of the importers and exporters. We're at the service of that foreign trade that represents almost 60% of the GDP, as we saw this morning, globally. Hence, the number of boxes doesn't say anything to me. Let me share two figures with you that tell me more about the importance of the port. Look at this, 40% of export and import containers of all of Spain pass through the port of Valencia. There's 40 ports of general interest in Spain and 28 port authorities. Only the port of Valencia is servicing 40% of foreign trade of Spain. That is indeed an indicator of how we contribute to generating value in our territory. Exactly the same that what we do periodically, and these figures are outdated because these are from a couple of years ago. We are updating our studies of our economic impact, but the Port of Valencia accounts for 2.5% of the GDP of the Valencia Comunidad Valenciana, and we generate almost 40,000 jobs, counting direct and indirect jobs and induced jobs. This is what's truly important, and not that we move 2, 3, 5, or 10 million boxes, but how we contribute to economic development. And what does this do to? Well, to things that are natural, like our geographical position from a maritime point of view. If we look at an ideal route passing from the Suez Canal through the Strait of Gibraltar, well, we are the port with the least deviation, where one finds a very important hinterland in the Iberian Peninsula in a 350-kilometer radius. Well, we have 55% of the Spanish GDP, more than 50% of the population. That is, we have a position both from a maritime as well as a ground point of view that is privileged. We are the port with the best maritime connectivity according to long-term indicators above 90. That is excellent connectivity. And additionally, we are a port with very good connections, both of source recipient, short distance, as well as with feeder services with the Mediterranean, Europe, and the North indeed. Now, my second reflection, the port ultimately is a set of many companies, many institutions, public, and it's what we call the port community. And if we want the port to be efficient, we need to make that each and every one of these players in the port community is also efficient, and their interactions amongst them also be efficient. Therefore, we then are concerned not only about the port infrastructures, not only about the efficiency of the services managed by the Port Authority, but also for ensuring global efficiency of this port at the service, on the one hand, of the shippers, the exporters and exporters, and on the other hand, the shipping lines and the ships. So we developed projects like Marca de Garantía, which is today a reality, that is articulating the port community, and also what's the port community system, the Valencia Port PCS, which is a platform, a very mature platform. We are managing more than 70 million messages, which is entirely necessary for operation and management of the port, and which also has allowed us to pass through this pandemic with very little difficulties, because all the transactions used to be done before the pandemic electronically. For this platform, of course, two leverages were fundamental that we have at the Port of Valencia. On the one hand, the Foundation Valencia Port, which developed and implemented together with the Port Authority this system, and on the other hand, Infoport, which is the technological company that also participated in the development and is the one that's exploiting and maintaining this system technically. And third reflection I wanted to share with you. The port ultimately is a link in the logistics chain. Therefore, if we truly want to contribute value to these importing and exporting companies, what we need to do is to articulate efficient logistics chains around the port. And with this vision, at the port, we invested not only within the port, but also in creating these efficient logistics chains. In this, then, we have invested in railroad terminals, in railway infrastructure, in railway services, intermodal services with the Port of Valencia. We presently have more than 80 trains weekly, and with the growing expansion of railway traffic, we have invested in dry ports in strategic parts of the hinterland. We have invested in logistics development, etc., etc. In addition, we have also been pioneer in protecting the environment. Today, we all talk about the importance of environmental aspects, but the Port of Valencia, back in the 1990s, began developing environmental management systems. In 2000, the Management Council approved the environmental policy, the first version, which evidently was updated year after year. We were the first port authority to have the AAPA certificate, the ISO certificates. So we have been an innovative port in terms of sustainability. In summary, the Port of Valencia, I believe we have been a sustainable port, market-oriented, efficient in services. We have invested in quality, technology, logistics, intermodality, sustainability, etc., etc. Well, this is very briefly a snapshot of the Port of Valencia. So what are the main challenges? Very briefly, because I'm running out of time. But basically, I would mention three big challenges that we all ports share. First of all is ecological transition. We want to pass from efficient environmental management to a port that's entirely green, entirely sustainable, which represents zero emissions, represents energy sufficiency, self-sufficiency, and also being able to provide this clean energy, this renewable energy, not only to the port operators, but also to the ships that call at our port. Secondly, I would mention the digital transformation, the way towards an intelligent port. When we talk about digital transformation, of digitalization, the idea we have is rethinking the port entirely, rethinking the entire operations and services, port services, profiting on the use of all the new efficient technologies. That is, not introducing, which would also be good, of introducing a technology to solve a specific problem or improve a specific process, but rethinking with this vision how the port needs to operate. That's what we understand about being a smart port. Thirdly, and not less importantly, we need to continue with innovation. We cannot stop. We have been an innovative port. We want to continue being an innovative port. And we have a very beautiful project called, or creating a hub, an innovation hub at the Port of Valencia, to give shape and support from the presentation of ideas or devising of ideas through the laboratory and ending up through companies operating with innovative products at the port. Well, then to facilitate all this generation of innovations, we're working once again with the Valencia Port Foundation on this very interesting project. And finally, My final comment. Infrastructures is important, logistics, digitalization, sustainability, they're all important. But most important is the people. People are the ones that are going to make all these concepts be efficient or inefficient. And with this, I also conclude the main investment we've made at the Port of Valencia has been investing in the people and doing so through the Fundación Valencia Port. Thank you very much for your attention. Good morning.
Thank you also, the AAPA organization, for giving us the opportunity to be here. 15 Dutch highly experienced companies. Yes, okay, the first is there. Highly experienced companies, and to be part of this important maritime event. And giving me the opportunity to talk about mutual challenges, how to stimulate local economies, and the need for port cities to become sustainable. And that the maritime future will be clean, connected, green, blue, and that we need it now. I don't know if this is a little film. Yes.
70% of our planet is covered by oceans and seas. They are vital to life on Earth, providing sustenance and inspiration, enabling transportation and growth. And they can be so much more. With increased pressure on our land, our oceans hold the key to fulfilling humanity's future food needs, renewable energy requirements, and clean transportation goals. However, our oceans are under the greatest threat ever, due to increasing carbon emissions, climate change, pollution, and overfishing. The Netherlands believes that if we want to untap the full potential of our oceans and inland waterways, we need to start changing the game right now. Owing much of our prosperity to the oceans, the Netherlands has developed into a thriving maritime hub with a highly skilled workforce. The Dutch maritime sector consists of world-class knowledge institutes, engineering companies, an interconnected shipbuilding industry, and vibrant ports with excellent maritime services, all within an area of just 200 kilometers. Together they create long-term integrated solutions that meet the highest quality and safety standards. The Netherlands is paving the way for the formation of international partnerships in order to realize smart and zero-emission shipping, develop green and connected port cities, and advance the sustainable blue economy. We are leading by example. If the blue economy were a country, it would have the 7th largest economy in the world. If we realize that around 90% of today's global trade is already carried over the oceans, imagine what we could do if we join forces today. The maritime future is now.
Let's start shaping it together. I think that's the most important for today. But first, a short introduction about myself. Thecla Bodewes from the named Shipyard Group. I'm the 7th generation, as you told already, of a family-owned group existing more than 200 years. We are based with 4 shipyards in the northern part of the Netherlands and focus on new building of commercial functional vessels as dredgers, multi-purpose vessels, research vessels and shallow water specials such as the pushes sailing here on the Magdalena River and also on the Paraná. However, I led this mission in my position as director of the top sector water and maritime. It's a public-private network organization to bring innovative projects faster to the market. Companies, governments, research centers, our Holland House for Business Development, and educational institutes work together to support technical state-of-the-art service and projects. Different teams in our innovation policy are developing smart, zero shipping, creating green, vibrant, and connecting port cities, acting as green gateway to Europe, and advancing sustainable blue economy with clean and productive oceans. And we like to do it together. We like to do it with you here in Latin America. Let's join together and shape the merry future now. Let's start with shipping. We believe in an efficient and sustainable future for the shipping industry and focus on future-proofed vessel design concept. And as you see here, we can say that shipping is by far the cleanest transport per transported ton. The intake of such a small vessel as you see over here, or an inland barge, is like 200 to 500 trucks. But we also know that around 90% of our global trade is carried over the oceans, accounting 2.5% of global greenhouse emissions, and that at the current state of growth, shipping will increase between 50 to 250% by 2050. So we need to do something now. Dutch shipyards and dredging companies experience a lot with all kinds of innovative fuel efficiency systems for sustainable saving solutions. All ready for alternative fuels, such as what you here see, MDO, diesel electric, LNG, hydrogen, methanol, etc. The systems are there. Small pilot projects are running, but for a real sustainable transformation, we need to do it together. And for that reason, we launched a concrete, sustainable maritime innovation plan with the goal of 30 zero-emission ships by 2030. With our government as launching customer, we will build 10 ships for our Ministry of Defense, 10 vessels for our Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure, and 10 commercial ships with the focus on making Dutch ship more sustainable technology widely available, so we like to share it with everybody, strategic smart manufacturing industry, sustainable development, and sustainable earning capacity. The Netherlands is proud of its excellent maritime knowledge and have a strong reputation in water and maritime, and we see it as one of our priorities to keep on innovating and connecting to other countries with similar challenges, to jointly prepare for the future. But we are here with more companies and more expertise. With 1/3 of our country, the Netherlands, below sea level, the Netherlands has learned to apply nature-based solutions to coastal protection structures and port infrastructure design. And we like to help you with our solutions, such as flood risk management, also needed for this part of the world to build resilient coast protection works, sustainable delta cities with nature-based solutions, wet infrastructure, create corridors via inland waterways and short sea routes, and construct efficient ports. Water management and water reuse, transition to a circular economy and sufficient clean and safe water. Water and digitalization, implement blockchain technology and introduce innovative smart grid technology. While taking the social challenges of the world into mind, we are committed to help other ports, governments and private companies overseas, increase the local economy in a safe and sustainable way, and to maintain and strengthen relationships guided by our mission, solving water challenges by increasing the world's prosperity. As I told you, we are with highly experienced Netherlands company here to help ports in Latin America. We are here with Arcades and Witteveen & Bos for sustainable design and engineering and consultancy solutions for natural and based assets. STC International educates worldwide maritime and logistics studies to share and improve knowledge, as we saw yesterday at the Contacmar premises. Rotterdam Port is the investment and promotion agency, your gateway to Rotterdam, part of Port of Rotterdam. We have Boskalis, De Boer, Dutch Dredging, and Van Oort for dredging ports and waterways, land reclamation, coastal defense, riverbank protection, and sustainable offshore solutions such as wind, solar, and hydrogen energy at sea. Diseco, Mayfair Latam, Global Port Equipment, Van Tunen and Steenis are all specialized in port development equipment. Curtis Automation, SAP and TBA Group are leaders in software and consultancy solutions for ships, port, coast guards in the fields of software development and system integration of automation and security solutions, and so more. But last and not least, Damen, IRC, and my own shipyard, Thecla Bodewes Shipyards, for smart shipping solutions. We need each other to make this importance clear again and again. Our world is facing considerable challenges that requires a continuous process of adaptation and innovation to future-proof our planet, secure the well-being of current and future generations, and to facilitate sustainable economic development. By bringing parties together and clearly defining success, we will solve current and future problems in water and maritime together. Tomorrow afternoon, Mr. Erik van Ekelen will tell you all about the nature-based solutions and building with nature. So that's, I think it's a very nice thing. You can also see it at our Dutch pavilion. But for me, it's important that together, we can only do it together. Together we will strengthen the maritime future now. Gracias, and hope to see you in our Dutch pavilion.
Ahí está bien.
Bueno, el destino me trajo acá. Muchas gracias.
Destiny brought me here. Thank you very much. Thecla. Una
El señor Omar Garcia nos acompaña.
moción. Omar Garcia is with us remotely.
Listo, Omar. Bienvenido. Adelante.
Welcome. You have the floor.
Can everybody hear me? Are we good to go?
Go ahead. Omar, te escuchamos.
So again, I'm Omar Garcia. I am the Chief External Affairs Officer at the Port of Corpus Christi. And I want to thank everybody for allowing me to speak today. My apologies that we are not there in person. We had several scheduling conflicts, but want to talk to you a little bit about today about the Port of Corpus Christi, where we've been the last 100 years, where we are currently, and what our future holds. Just from a geographic standpoint, the Port of Corpus Christi is 3 hours south of Houston, 2 hours south of San Antonio, and we're within 2.5 hours of the Texas-Mexico border. So we have a lot of proximity to Mexico, as Mexico is our largest trading partner.
Omar.
There are 18 different seaports throughout Texas. We are a political subdivision of the state of Texas. We are a large industrial hub. We're a gateway to global markets. We're a landowner, a land developer, and a landlord as well. Just to give you a little bit more information on the Port of Corpus Christi, we consider ourselves the energy port of the Americas. We are the #1 U.S. crude oil export gateway. We are the largest port in revenue tonnage and the 3rd largest in waterway tonnage. So the Port of Corpus Christi has seen major growth in the last 6 years. And the biggest reason for that is the ability for us to export domestically produced crude to international markets. Prior to December of 2015, we were not able to export domestic crude to the international markets, in particular, crude being produced in the state of Texas. On any given day, we export anywhere from 1.5 to 2 million barrels of oil per day. That's 1.5 to 2 million barrels of oil per day leave the Port of Corpus Christi to the international markets. And our top 5 destinations are Asia, South America, Canada, Mexico, and India. Those are some of our largest destinations where our crude goes. And a lot of the reasons that we have these numbers and our export numbers are so high is the proximity of the Port of Corpus Christi to one of the largest producing fields in the world, which is the Permian Basin in West Texas. We have a lot of pipeline connectivity that connects us from those producing fields to the Port of Houston, and then obviously into the international markets through our exports on large ships. During 2020, during the pandemic, we had a record year. We broke all our tonnage records, all our export numbers. We saw record growth in 2020. And 2021 has been identical in the sense that we will reach all our financial goals, all our export goals, and all our revenue goals as well too. So while we've seen some diminished growth in the oil and gas sector, that has not been the case in the Port of Corpus Christi in terms of export growth and economic development as well. We consider ourselves an omniport. We're more than just a crude export port. We have dry bulk, we have a bulk terminal. We are the largest export gateway in the state of Texas for agricultural products from local farmers, whether that be grain, sorghum, cotton, and other crops that are produced here. Again, we're the largest export port in the state of Texas. And so we're very proud of that. And we also have one of the largest LNG facilities at the Port of Corpus Christi, Cheniere. Cheniere is a great company that exports liquefied natural gas throughout the world. They have a $15 billion facility at the Port of Corpus Christi, and they have been in business for the last 3 years and are one of the port's largest customers. What you don't see on here from my counterparts at the Port of Valencia, we are not a container port. We do not have a containerized facility. We do not specialize in containers. A lot of what we do is liquid bulk. If we had to offload a container at the Port of Corpus, we could do it. We just don't have all the logistics, the rail and the land and the cranes to offload them in a timely manner. But if we had to, given the crisis and the shipping crisis that's going on throughout the world, if we had to, we certainly could do it. But the main focus of the Port of Corpus is a liquid terminal, liquid exports, and has been like that for the last several years. So, and we want to talk about a little bit about economic development. As I mentioned, we have seen record growth at the Port of Corpus Christi. We have over $55 billion of new investment going into the Port of Corpus Christi. These are numbers that we have never seen in this region in the last 30 years. And as you can see by the logos, these are both domestic and international companies, companies that we recognize. Right now, there are 98,000 new jobs in the region directly tied to this investment in these companies. From an economic impact perspective, the impact that we have is really measured by what we mean to the local economy. We account for almost over a third of the jobs in the region, 150 billion economic impact to the United States, 19 billion to Texas, and 3 billion locally. So the impact that we have throughout the state and the region cannot be measured. And we're in a very fortunate position that we've seen this growth, and we hope to continue this growth as we move forward for the next several years. We've been in existence for 95 years, so we're getting very close to our centennial celebration. We're connected around the globe with pipelines, with our ships, with the products, where they're going, their final destinations. We are primed for the international market. Now, of course, a lot of that happened because the export ban was lifted in 2015, in December of 2015. But where we've been, the port started nearly 100 years ago as an agricultural port. It kept with the agricultural, then it turned into refined products for several years, towards the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. And then as things changed with the shale revolution and what that meant in the Eagle Ford Shale and the Permian Basin and fracking, we became an export port. So we've gone from agricultural to refining to an export port. And now we're looking at what does the next 100 years look like for the Port of Corpus Christi? What do we look like? What does the future hold for us? And a lot of the things that we're looking at, knowing that our base and our core will always be exports and refined products in the oil and gas industry, but how do we diversify? How do we continue to look forward to the future and that environmental sustainability? While we're an oil and gas port, we have a huge responsibility from the environmental standpoint. We have a lot of initiatives on environment, on keeping clean air. We're in attainment, having clean water. You can't see behind me because the lighting is bad, but behind me is the Corpus Christi Ship Channel. And at the entrance of the ship channel is our Texas State Aquarium, a marine biology aquarium with several hundred species of different fish. One of the unique things about that Texas State Aquarium is that they have a dolphin exhibit, and the water in that exhibit is drawn directly from the ship channel. And so that is a testament of the port, for the Port of Corpus Christi and all of its customers, keeping Texas oil out of Texas water. We're very proud of that, and we have great partnerships with several environmental organizations. But as we look towards the future, what does that look like? We have a lot of ambition on hydrogen exports, green hydrogen exports, carbon capture sequestration, more wind, more solar in this region. This is what we have ambition for the next 100 years, is to be the energy transition port of the Americas. Texas is the #1 wind energy and solar generation state. A lot of people don't understand that. When they think of Texas, they think primarily of oil and gas. But we have a lot of wind and a lot of solar generation, and some of that is near the Port of Corpus Christi. So we're positioned very nicely to take advantage of some of those natural resources and some of the investments that several customers have made in wind and solar generation. What we're looking at right now, we are working with several companies. One of the biggest things that we're looking at is carbon capture sequestration. How do we reduce our CO2 emissions? And a lot of that is coming from target sources from our customers. We are primed from a geology standpoint in the Gulf of Mexico that there are areas in the Gulf of Mexico within 9 miles off the coast and off our ship channel where we can sequester carbon. And so we've had several discussions with our customers, major customers, about taking that carbon from the ship channel and running a pipe all the way into the Gulf of Mexico to sequester that because of the geology and the proximity to those target sources. This is a map, and I know it's a little fuzzy, but this is a map that shows you some of the geology and how close. You see the Port of Corpus Christi with all the pins on the left, those aqua turquoise pins on the left. Those are some of our target sources. And you see the red, those are the pipeline corridors and the pipeline right-of-ways where we can run a pipe and sequester that carbon into the Gulf of Mexico. So we've had several discussions with major companies, global companies, that are interested in this because they know that this is the right thing to do for the environment. And this is what's going to allow them to keep producing, to be in business for the next 50 years. So we're very excited about this opportunity. In addition, we want to talk about hydrogen. There's more hydrogen than we know what to do with being produced here locally at the Port of Corpus Christi. A lot of it is produced from the refineries. We have 3 major refineries at the Port of Corpus Christi: Valero, Citgo, and Flint Hills. A lot of their waste gas goes to a central location called Howard Energy. And there's enough hydrogen there being produced that we can turn that into blue, green eventually, and then hopefully get that to the international markets via exports. So that's something that we're talking to several companies, had a lot of interest from Asia and South America on hydrogen. We know that this is the future. We know this is coming, and we're excited about the possibilities of us being, again, the energy transition port of the Americas. We also have a very aggressive agreement with Ares Management, which is a large investment firm located in New York, to do green hydrogen. And a big component of doing green hydrogen is having the solar component, it's the solar and the wind and the water. So we're looking at how we marry all those things together to produce green hydrogen. We're also looking at offshore wind possibilities as well too, because again, the Gulf of Mexico is primed for offshore wind with so much wind, the current, the mile per hour. We're in a very good position for offshore wind as well too. The last slide I want to leave you with is kind of a rundown of the agreements that we have, our memorandum of understandings that we have, and these are very key. Our first one is with the Port of Rotterdam. We started a partnership with the Port of Rotterdam in February. The Port of Rotterdam is kind of the model of ports that we're looking at that has done and that is looking at carbon capture sequestration, that is looking at hydrogen exports, and that has a very high environmental sustainability program. It's something we want to emulate. So we've had that MOU in place for almost going on almost a year. We have a lot of ambition to do some of the things that the Port of Rotterdam is doing. And unfortunately with COVID, we've not had a chance to go visit Rotterdam, but we look forward to hopefully going in 2022. We've got another agreement with Stabilis to do LNG bunkering as we receive more ships that can fuel with LNG, reducing emissions, reducing CO2. That's something we want to do. So we are working towards offering some of the ships that can have the capability of loading with LNG. We want them to do that, again, reducing the carbon footprint and keeping us in attainment. We talked a little bit about Ares and their green hydrogen. We're looking forward to doing with that. We're in discussions with them about setting up leasing land to establish the solar farm, and then talking about getting some additional water from a desal plant that we're working on to do green hydrogen. We talked a little bit about Howard Energy and their Javelina plant, where they have some hydrogen and their ambition to do blue and green hydrogen as well too. We can't do this without the state of Texas. So the Texas State Office of the Texas General Land Office is who we will work with. The Texas General Land Office owns the first 9 miles into the Gulf of Mexico. And in order to do our carbon capture sequestration, we have to lease land and have that pipeline corridor and right of way from the Texas General Land Office. So we've got an MOU with them as well too. They've issued an RFP to do a very similar project near Houston. And we feel very confident that the second one will be in the Corpus Christi region. And the last one, but not least, is also one that's very exciting to us, is the National Renewable Energy Lab, which is a subsidiary of the Department of Energy. We've got some initiatives with them to do decarbonization and energy transition. So as we look towards these next 100 years, our core will always remain the oil and gas industry and creating those jobs and economic development for the region, sustaining the oil and gas industry. But in order to sustain that growth and look towards the future, keeping in mind how important the environment is, we want to look and be the energy transition port of the Americas as well too, by exporting hydrogen, by having carbon capture sequestration, being able to sequester it here in the region. That is our ambition. That is what we are looking forward to. So again, I thank you for your time. I encourage you to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, and we look forward to seeing everybody next year through the pandemic. Hopefully it's over and we can all travel again safely. And again, thank you for your time and thank you for your interest in the Port of Corpus Christi.
Un minuto. Bueno, tengo 2 minutos.
Well, I have 2 minutes. I would like to thank Francesc, Thecla, and Omar for their time. Very interesting presentation. For those who just joined us, the most interesting things that I would like to highlight here with respect to Mr. Sánchez is that they are totally disruptive in their strategy. And actually, I would like to congratulate you for that, because what you have done during the past 40 or 50 years is just awesome. I liked that he focused on the 40,000 employees. I know that we are looking for logistic solutions, but this will be useless if at the end of the day we do not have that impact on the city. As we spoke in the webinar with Carla, to integrate the city to the port, I think that's something that has been successfully attained with respect to Thecla Bodewes. I really like that her vision, that the future is today. She has clear the percentage of trade through the oceans, and it's great that they will build their vessels to have low or zero emissions. Congratulations. And on the port of Corpus Christi, I mean, I'm surprised. I didn't know it was such an important port. They move more oil than what my country moves, and my country is an oil-producing country. And I like that even though they've been in the market for almost 100 years and they have their core business, they have a clear strategy that the future is green, and they have clarity on the steps to follow. So I just want to wish you success, and that you're going to do better than what you're doing today. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much, Moderator, for your conclusions. I want to thank the panelists. And before going to the coffee break, which